Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Happiness is so overrated anyway. Didn't want to be happy. What a stupid game of football that was. That was really, really stupid. It was a Tottenham Hotspur match that, let's be honest, we've seen before. The supporters have witnessed that match so many times this season. We all have. Early dismay, missed chances, late bit of hope, but ultimately disappointment. Yeah, deja vu certainly is. Hey, Spurs are nothing if not record breakers, at least. Look at it that way. I mean, Nottingham Forest managed to produce just 4 touches in the Tottenham penalty area last night. Spurs had 45 in the Forest box, if you were wondering. Those 4 touches from Forest made for the fewest touches in the opposition box by a winning team in a Premier League game since Crystal Palace managed 2 against Brighton in February 2021. Yay! Do we get a trophy for that, I hear you ask? Oh my goodness. When I say stupid game, it's because it was another game where Spurs had 22 shots at Forest goal. Forest had 4. How are Tottenham coming away losing that game? Do you know, I kind of said to myself, I'm not going to get too annoyed with games like in these remaining ones because let's be honest, it's all about the Europa League. Spurs are safe from relegation. I know the fact that we're even saying that statement is ridiculous. But I was kind of thinking, the more important stuff is Europa League. And I still find myself getting drawn in and irritated by the things that Tottenham Hotspur do. It's just mad. Matt Sells was probably player of the game. The Forest keeper, he made 4 pretty decent saves. 1 flying one from Odebear, 1 really good low one from Richarlison's header. I remember that. Harry Toffolo cleared off the line with a brilliant last-ditch kind of a flying attempt to get back. I think it hit his shin and he got it away. I weirdly have a little bit of history with Harry Toffolo. Only a very tiny one. He comes from the kind of, I think it was Welwyn Garden City he was born. I think, if I remember correctly, he went to a school in one of the local patches I used to write about when I was on local newspapers. And I think, if my memory serves me right, I had to interview him many years ago. It was either when he was at Huddersfield or whoever he was at before Huddersfield, maybe Lincoln. I can't remember. But I had to interview him. Who would have thought that all these years on, he'd be in the Premier League, which is great for him. And not so great, he would be utterly destroying my evening in doing a fantastic clearance off the line from Dejan Kulusevski's really nice glancing header from a Pedro Porro corner. So, yay! Nice to see you again, Harry. Ah, dear, oh dear. But it just doesn't matter, does it, with Spurs? It just doesn't matter. So, 22 shots on goal. But ultimately, if you're going to decide just in 2 or 3 moments to defend like schoolboys, doesn't matter. They undid themselves as much with that, if not more so, than they did with not being able to put a finishing touch on their various efforts and shots. Ah, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Guillermo Vicario. There were so many players, or quite a few players, that in Frankfurt were brilliant. But either side at the weekends were like, nah. And Guillermo Vicario was one of those. He didn't play well. He got my lowest rating by a mile in my player ratings last night because I felt that all 3 goals, because one was VAR ruled out for offside, technically Vicario had a hand to play in all of them. He had a hand. The one he should have got a hand to was the one that, he really could have done with getting a hand to. It makes more sense to me than it does to you, I'm sorry. Let's start with the first goal, as we're there. So, 5 minutes in, it is. Spurs normally concede 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes in. It feels to be a bit of that mark. I don't know why, we always get it. So, no pressure at all. Corner comes to the box. Pedro Porro heads it across his own area. I think it hits someone, maybe Odebear. That slightly diverts its path. It was going to, even these little weird sliding doors moments where an extra touch does something, it deflects it away from Kulusevski, instead goes to Elliot Anderson. Elliot Anderson catches it very nicely, to be fair, but it deflects off Bentancur. Not, I would say, to a huge degree, but Vicario then kind of just palms it into his own net. It doesn't look good in slow-mo. If I'm going to give him any benefit of the doubt, Vicario, maybe the deflection and the power of the shot maybe was a bit much for him, but he will be looking at that and thinking, I should be pushing that out rather than into my own goal. You've got to have a stronger wrist than that. So that's 5 minutes in. And what I thought was really annoying about it, and again points back to not learning from previous experiences, only 8 days before at Molineux, same thing. Early on, a corner is only knocked out to the edge of the box, where shock horror once again, people completely free, they're able to hit the ball back into the net. It shouldn't happen twice in successive Premier League games. That is a lack of understanding, focus, concentration. It's a lack of the coaches, I guess, drilling that into them where they need to be. You could argue, I'm sure someone will, that it's just unfortunate that deflections take it away from where Decky was on the edge of the box, but still, come on, it's not good enough. So that's goal 1. Then we almost had goal 2. I think it was only a couple of minutes later. Chris Wood gets in behind, I think it was in between Van der Ven and Jed Spence. If you're not aware, I'm sure you were if you watched the match. Postecoglou made 5 changes. So Jed was back at left back. It is all right on the night. It wasn't one of his greatest performances, but he was all right. But yeah, gets in between Van der Ven and Jed Spence. And Chris Wood just kind of touches the ball onto Vicario. Vicario kind of gets a hand to it again into his own net. Thankfully for Vicario this time, VAR decided. It was, I think Chris Wood knew, to be honest, that he was offside. It was like his kind of shoulder offside, really. So Stockley Park, while it was working, we had a little moment or two, maybe a few minutes when there was no VAR in the game because there was a fire alarm went off at Stockley Park, so they were not able to participate in the game. It would have been classic Spurs to have scored an onside goal that was ruled offside by a flag, but there was no VAR to rule it out, and everyone would have been like, "Oh, you like VAR now, don't you, Angie?" I still don't like it. I don't know why he suddenly became Cockney. So that was goal 2 that never was, but unfortunately, goal 2 that was did occur and arrive and ruin our evenings. It came, I think it was 17 minutes in. And yes, Chris Wood, he did get on the score sheet this time. There's some really slack marking. I mean, Van der Ven kind of had him for a moment, had a bit of an arm wrestle with him, and then Chris Wood just flicked him away far too simply. That kind of put off Van der Ven, and then Wood was just able to kind of wander into the space between Van der Ven and behind Romero and just heads it into the net. I think it was Alanga's cross. And Vicario, I don't know if he's aware that there's a new Superman and he can't any longer audition for the new movie coming out this summer. But he flew out, flew past it. Absolutely flew past Chris Wood and the ball, and it was just terrible. It was a really poor attempt to get the ball, went nowhere near it. And Chris Wood's probably thinking, thanks, and just nods it down into the net. 2-0. Everyone very unhappy apart from the Forest fans. And in a pre-planned move at half-time, Romero and Van der Ven are taken off, which I think confused a lot of people, but I think we all kind of saw it and was like, it's too coincidental to be 2 injuries. I know they got injured in the same game before, but at the same time, Kevin Danso and Ben Davies came on, and I don't know whether it's the biggest criticism of Van der Ven and Romero or the biggest compliment to Danso and Davies. There was no negative impact by that substitution at all. If anything, Spurs looked better in defence. I thought Romero was really hot-headed. He had the mist, the Romero mist came down last night, the red mist. He had a few challenges. You just thought, why have you gone for that? He got a yellow card. There was another one where I kind of felt he got a little bit lucky it didn't kind of evolve into something else. He kind of left his foot. I feel like it might have been Anderson. Went in for a challenge, won the ball. His foot remained up and he caught Anderson at the end of it. But then his foot was kind of stuck in not the foot wasn't stuck in Anderson, but it was stuck kind of in the vicinity of Anderson, who kind of wrapped himself around it. And as he got up, I just felt Romero left it in there a little bit longer than he should have done. But it didn't go anywhere. Anderson stayed on the ground for a little while. But yeah, it was just one of those games where I wouldn't have been shocked if he'd got a second yellow in the second half had he stayed on. Van de Ven, I was quite disappointed with. I thought after really looking like his old self in Frankfurt, it kind of, and I'm kind of making a big point about I want to be playing every game. And it didn't work. He didn't look good. He just kind of looked a little bit shaky on the ball at times, but also his defending and his marking wasn't great at all. And I thought, in kind of contrast, I thought Danso came on and was really strong, did the Romero role of really kind of pushing up and being aggressive with the ball, played a lovely pass into Sarr's path that if Sarr just controlled it a bit better would have been a really good chance. And Davies, I thought, on the whole, dealt with everything that kind of came his way. So it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes different opposition, different partnerships work better. And yeah, it maybe didn't require what Van de Ven Romero would normally bring on the day. So yeah, Postecoglou explained afterwards. I asked him about it first, was it pre-planned? I think he was a little bit knocked about the question I just asked before, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I just got it was pre-planned. We moved on to the next one, but someone kind of, I think it was maybe George Sessions, reiterated it later just to get a fuller answer. And he said, I thought they needed to play some minutes tonight because it becomes 10 days leading into Liverpool with both of them, Mrs. Van de Ven Romero. We've got them in a really good place physically now, and I just want to keep them ticking over. I felt that there was no need to play more than 45 minutes today, and we need to get... He wasn't doing that, I just said need. And we needed to get a couple of others game time. I just felt that if it was Sunday, we probably wouldn't have played them. But on a Monday, especially for Mickey, because he's been playing just one game a week, we need to build him up because he's in a really good place at the moment. So I thought 45 minutes for both of them would be beneficial. There was also no Destiny Doggy in the squad, although he was involved in the warm-up. And Maddison was back on the bench despite absolutely getting hammered in that challenge that led to the penalty in Frankfurt. He was asked about them, and he said, yeah, they're okay. Destiny was fine. We just left him out of the squad tonight. He put in a big physical shift on Thursday, and the idea was always to rest him. I wasn't going to put him on, so there was no point in putting him on the bench. Madders was pretty sore yesterday, but in the last 24 hours, he's recovered and was keen to be on the bench. They're both fine. Maddison did not come on, but... yeah, he seems to have improved. So that's good in terms of getting him, I guess, some minutes against Liverpool and then hopefully in the semi-final. Romero's evening was not done. There was more to come from Romero, even if Tottenham thought his night was done. So the reason for that is a portion of an interview came out late last night. I got back from the station, got in my car, drove home, and as I got out of my car, my friend pinged with a few messages asking if I'd seen the Romero interview. And I was like, what? I kind of half knackered and just wanted to get back in. This was just before 1 a.m. I was getting there, maybe 12:30. And I kind of looked it up. It was Romero. I was like, oh, man. It's the old Roy Hodgson meme again, isn't it? Yeah. So Romero done an interview with a chap, Argentinian journalist called Gaston Edul, who you might see pop up a lot when it comes to Romero. I think Romero and his camp are quite close to this journalist, and this interview was released right after the game, about an hour after the final whistle. This portion of the interview, it's like a preview to tease you to watch a full YouTube video that is to come. Released to maximum effect at that time, because I guess in the UK, people are looking at their post-match stuff. And back in Argentina, I presume that would be early evening. I'm trying to think how many hours behind they are, maybe a bit more. So the portion they use in this interview, I should stress first off, the quotes that shock horror, the quotes that emerged on social media were kind of slightly taken out of the context of it and made it sound worse than it was. But there's still some bits about it that I think was a little bit, which we'll discuss. But so to start off, and this is the best kind of translation I've found, Romero was asked, what has he got planned for next in his career? And he says, well, I try above all else to live day by day. There are almost 2 months left until the end of the season, and my focus is always on performing at my best and trying to finish in the best way possible. We're in the Europa League semi-final, which is an important step for the club. After so many years of not making it this far, I can say I'm happy because in the end I'd like to win it. It depends on many things. But yeah, after this, when the season ends, we'll see. Honestly, I haven't spoken with my agent yet, but I'm open to anything. My mindset is always about growing, also about going to new places to keep developing, but I don't want to talk about that just yet because there are still a few months left before the season ends. So I think if it ends there, and that's fair enough. There's some little kind of maybe alluding slightly to what he maybe wants and things like that, but nothing too much. Pretty much just saying, I'm focused on this season. Let's crack on. I want to win a trophy with Tottenham. Yeah, and that would have been okay, I think. But then what happened next is the journalist asks Romero, what league would you like to play in next? Bearing in mind, he is sitting at Hotspur Way. He's in the indoor, what do they call it nowadays? Just an indoor training area, like a bubble, I think we used to call them in the day. It's quite a hot place within Spurs where it's the heat sits in there. It probably does. So he's asked, while sitting on a chair inside Tottenham's training ground, where do you want to play next? And what league do you want to play in? And he said, yes, the league I'm missing, as in from my collection, because he's played in Italy and England, is Spain's. I'd love to, honestly, La Liga. I'd love to play there because it's the one I haven't played in yet. So it's a bit like, okay. It's not great with all the speculation about you right now, but okay. I guess if you're looking at it in context of this thing, where it's a further question, it's maybe, I think a lot of the quotes that went out kind of separately were, I want to play in La Liga, and it kind of came as if you're saying, I want it now, now, now. It was also asked, to be fair, if he wanted to play back in Argentina one day, and he said, I would love to return to Argentina at some point in my career, to live in Cordoba. If I go back, it's to Belgrano. That's decided. That's where it's at. So, like I said, the full context of the interview, full context of what's been released of the interview, I think those bits have probably been grabbed as well from certain points in the interview, maybe. There's slightly more context to it than what's out there in snap kind of short form. But yeah, the full interview should provide even more context when it arrives, I think, in the next few days. I saw there's little kind of a travel vlog that the journalist has done. He's put that up, which has got a little bit of Romero in it, but not much. And then the journalist speculating that he thinks his Tottenham days are coming to an end and things like that. What I would say, if you're sitting within the training ground of your current employers and you're talking about what happens, where you want to play next, it's not a good look. Regardless of the way he went about it and what he said, and he was answering a question that was put to him about what league he'd like to play in next, I just feel like he'd done a kind of a job in batting away the future stuff. I think maybe that just needed to continue for that question, personally. But look, it's up to him. He can say whatever he likes. I just kind of felt it came across as slightly disrespectful to do it within the training ground of your current employer. That's my kind of point with it. I didn't have masses of issues with the interview as a whole. I just felt that was probably the one area it could have been. Look, as a journalist, if I'm a journalist, I'm thinking cha-ching. But in terms of, from the club itself and for fans, I don't think it's the greatest thing to hear in the world, especially with the speculation has been about Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, and he's saying, I want to move to Spain. Not obviously putting a time frame on that, but yeah, I mean, Romero's interviews are so rare, and they're also kind of rarely without incident when he does do them. I think because he speaks without filters, and that's what's such a shame. We get him, I don't know, once every year, 18 months, 2 years, because if his English was a little bit better, or obviously we've had some good ones with a translator, if we just heard from him more, I think there'd be some fascinating stuff. I mean, even in the English ones he's done, he spoke about Conte and the fracture in the dressing room. He addressed the loving Argentina more than the Spurs and giving more to them rumours really well. He's done some kind of really nice interviews. But yeah, it's just obviously he's naturally going to gravitate to his local journalists back in Argentina, which is understandable. I do think there's a little bit of irony that all the talk of a move elsewhere is probably coming towards the end of one of his worst, if not his worst season at Tottenham. Hasn't looked himself. I mean, he's only made 18 Premier League appearances this season. He's only played in 23 of Spurs' 52 games this season because obviously hamstring injuries, toe injuries. There's only one of each. And I guess in between those injuries, he hasn't really found his rhythm. He looked a little bit shaky at the start of the season without much pre-season. And, for all of Frankfurt performance, I thought he was brilliant. I thought it was terrific in Germany. Then he looked really shaky and kind of like he was losing the plot a little bit at times with the red mist stuff on last night against Forest. So I don't think it's been his best season. And it's a shame because Spurs, when he's at his best, he's a terrific player. He kind of drives a lot of what Spurs do defensively, but also as the base of their attack, the foundation of the attacks. And also he scores goals. Got 5 goals last season, which I think I remember saying was the top goal output for a defender in the Premier League. This season he's just got the 1, and I think they've missed that as well. I do wonder if you're like me, if you feel a slight familiarity with all of this. It feels a little bit, maybe not to the same degree. Do you remember in 2021 when with 5-6 games left of the season, we had the Harry Kane interview with Gary Neville on the golf course? It was just after Ryan Mason had taken over as caretaker manager. And it was all on, okay, we really need to push now. If they've got any chance of getting a Champions League spot, they've got to go for it. And I think, was that a cup final? Was it before or after the cup final? I can't remember. The Carabao Cup final. I don't know. I can't remember. But either way, it was like just really not great timing. Someone talking about potentially playing elsewhere, and it just had an effect. Should Romero really be talking about his future 10 days or so before a European semi-final? I don't think so. It's the journalist has got every right to ask, unless he was asked not to, but he's got every right to ask, and Romero's got every right to answer. But I just think timing-wise, it wasn't really well thought through. But yeah, it just reminded me of the Kane interview. And funnily enough, Kane, after that, I remember not being particularly good in the remaining games. I think he scored twice. I remember scoring against Leicester in the final day, or maybe just got a couple of assists. But yeah, he wasn't great. And, it was his best mate, Ryan Mason, in charge. And it was just this unnecessary distraction thing that could have gone out after the season ended. It could have been so many opportunities to do it. And it just almost felt like it came at its most disruptive time. There's an element to this with the Romero kind of side. And look, when it comes to Romero, he's not as prized an asset, of course, for Spurs than Harry Kane was. Nobody is. Harry Kane was the biggest asset Spurs had in terms of how important he was to the team. Sonny probably was the closest, wasn't he? Certainly in that period. But when it comes to Romero, I personally think Spurs would let him go this summer, but if the right offer came in, and that's the biggest if of it all, because I suppose they'll look at it and say, look, we signed him for, what was it, 42.5 million, something like that. Since then, he's become a World Cup winner. He's won another Copa America. He's played more than 100, actually, it might be exactly 100 Premier League games, I have a feeling. Did they mention that yesterday? I think last night's game might have been his 100th Premier League game. But either way, 100 Premier League games. I think it's 120 something in total for Spurs. There's enough there that you're probably whacking another 10, 15, maybe 20 million pounds on that if you're Spurs. He's got 2 years left in his contract. He's a player that a lot of the big clubs, I think, would like in their side. I don't think, he might argue that the world hasn't been able to see the best of him at club level because Spurs have been so inconsistent. Whereas that's why he's won international trophies, because he's always lauded as the top, one of the top defenders in the world. Messi thinks he's the best in the world and things like that. And so if Messi says he's the best in the world, then the price tag should probably reflect that. But who can afford that? I think if you've got a Real Madrid or Barcelona coming in, maybe. Atletico Madrid, not entirely sure, but it depends, if they can get some money from somewhere for him, if they were going to go for him. Yeah, yeah. And the trouble is he can give as many interviews as he likes back home over the summer. But we know what Spurs are like. If they don't get an offer they want to sell him, then he's not going to go anywhere. 2 years left, you're probably going to get your maximum price still. The final year, that goes down a bit. Well, we saw what happened with Kane. They still got, up almost 100 million or so. So, yeah, I don't think Romero is going to have it as easy as he'd like, if that's what he wants. And that's the other issue, isn't it? If you've got 2 years left on your contract, and if I'm not saying he isn't, but if he shows no signs of wanting to sign a new deal, then again, in the Spurs' mind, maybe it's like, maybe you do take that decision if a reasonable offer comes in. Because you look at it, you've got Van der Ven, you've got Danso, who I think is a really good defender that's come in, and I think does carry a certain degree of the strengths that Romero has in his game. I'm not saying he's as good or he's technically a different defender, but he's got elements of his strengths. You've got Luka Vuskovic coming in this summer as well. You've got Ben Davies. The option is there for him to have this extra season as well, which I can't remember if it's been taken or not, but it's there anyway. And then whether they look at Ashley Phillips and whether he gets a chance or not. Vuskovic is the big one. He's been talking this week about kind of having confidence that he can come in and slot into that back line. And I think they'd go for someone else. I wonder if they were to sell someone like Romero, I think they would make a big push to sign Mark Gay. Again, whether they would get him is a whole different thing. They've had a worse season than Palace this season in terms of the Premier League. And also, I think a lot of the top Premier League clubs will be looking at Mark Gay as well. But he's certainly someone that Spurs really like. So we'll see how it shakes up with Romero. I just hope that it doesn't kind of become this distracting thing. Obviously, Postecoglou is going to have to talk about it in his next press conference. And it just really, it needs to be kind of put a pin in it. It really does. Because he needs to win Europa League with Spurs first, because before we even start talking about those things, because that would be great. So, back to the game. Spurs created chances with Romero on the pitch. They created chances with Romero off the pitch. He didn't really have much impact in leaving the game. Like I said, Sells had already saved from Wilson Odobert, made that save from Richarlison. We had Toffler's goal line clearance. But it wasn't until the 87th minute when Spurs gave us all that little bit of late hope that just eventually kills us. Richarlison had a number of chances. It was a lovely header, to be fair. It's a terrific header, great cross from Porro. And the irony is, with all the unavailability of Richarlison, that was his fourth goal in his past 5 Premier League appearances. It's just mad, isn't it? Spurs and huffed and puffed and just couldn't find a way through. Again, deja vu. We've been there before. So many times they've conceded early goals and kind of flattered to deceive without finding a real way back. Whereas I felt like maybe last season they were finding last minute goals, whereas this season they're just not being there, almost like the luck ran out, I suppose. I asked Postecoglou after the game, I said, look, 22 shots on goal to their 4. How in the world are you losing that game? And he said, it's another game where we've lost, where we just shouldn't lose. And it's been a big part of our season in that we're just making things really difficult for ourselves in key moments. Just a little bit of concentration, giving away poor goals. It's a shame because our football was outstanding. We totally dominated the game. Even with the 2 goals we conceded, I still feel like we deserve to win the game. At the same time, it's another loss and another unacceptable loss. For us, it's just been a season where at times, even with the challenges we've had, and we've had challenges today, having to make changes to the team, but it's really frustrating because our football was so good, we've lost another game. And the trouble is, they've lost another game. Unwanted records are looming. They really, really are right there. If Spurs don't pick up another 8 points from their remaining 5 games, they're going to come away from the season with their lowest ever points tally in the Premier League, which is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. 8 points is a tough ask from these 5 games as well, because you've got trips to Anfield and Villa Park, London derbies against West Ham and Palace, which are around the Europa League semi-final legs as well. So they're not exactly going to be the priority in those weeks. And you've also got Brighton on the final day, who can be any kind of Brighton can turn up on the day. So, yeah, 8 points is a big ask from these 5 games. It really, really is. You've got the very real possibility that if Postecoglou were to succeed in the Europa League, and we'll be very happy with the trophy, he could be the worst Tottenham Premier League manager to do so. It's just remarkable. 18th Premier League defeat of the season. They need to avoid 2. I think one more, they equal the worst total of Premier League defeats. Obviously 2 more, and they are absolutely heading above the worst. And again, look at those fixtures. 2 defeats is very, very manageable in those remaining games. They've already, at home as well, they've already surpassed the most home defeats in a 38-game campaign. I think I riled up Postecoglou a little bit after the game. Not intentionally to rile him up, but I just had to make the point because I didn't want it to be a press conference where we just talk again about how, decent performance, but ultimately lost. Like just going in this silly circle. I just had to say to him, look, 18th Premier League defeat this season. It's just too much. And what do you say to the fans after an 18th Premier League defeat of the season? And you can see his face. He just wanted to strangle me in the moment. And he just said, I don't need to say anything to the fans. The fans are disappointed and angry as we are as well. It's too many losses. I know that. I don't need to tell the fans anything. The fans clearly wouldn't be happy with our results, but neither am I nor the players. From our perspective, it's something we need to accept responsibility that we have fallen short of the standards we need to have. The flip side of that is the frustrating bit is it's not because of the way we're playing, because our football today was very similar to the Frankfurt game at home, which was another game we should have won. And yeah, I wasn't trying to rile him up or anything, but I just think it needs to be said. And some might rightly say, you don't have to remind him he's lost 18 games this season in the Premier League. He's very well aware of that. But also, I just feel like sometimes press conferences, and myself included, because I'm asking about other aspects of the game that I'm more interested in, sometimes, it's just got to be reminded, like, this is pants. This is really rubbish. This should not be. A team with the players in that team should never be sitting currently in 16th in the league. By the time Spurs play again, they could be 17th in the league if West Ham win at Brighton, I think it is. It is not good enough. It's just not. And there's no getting away from that. And the manager, unfortunately, is the figurehead of that. And they have to be answerable to the fans. So that was why you might notice the question after that I asked about, was it pre-planned? He went, yeah, it's pre-planned. And I was like, okay, okie dokie. And then George had to get a little bit more detail on that. Missed chances, poor defending, being open on the counter-attack, that's what's littered and destroyed this season domestically for Spurs. The Europa League, somehow it's all still alive and ongoing, but domestically that's what killed them. It just amazes me. It's utterly ridiculous, really, that Tottenham, I can talk about them being so organised, so well drilled, so ready for the challenge ahead in Frankfurt. And then 4 days later, can play as if they've just met each other in defence. It bewilders, it confuses. I don't understand. I just don't understand. And this is my thing that I've been saying about Postecoglou is absolutely during the injury crisis, there was every reason for games being uneven, difficult, energy levels, new partnerships being thrust together. Absolutely. Now, I'm not giving those as reasons or backups, and I don't think those should be allowed by him or the coaching staff either. These games should be being won. I know Forest are flying high and they third again in the table, but that Forest team last night was there to be beaten, and you can see that by the amount of shots Spurs had on that goal. When you've got the majority of your players back, there's a couple of odd new partnerships in there like Tell and Spence playing together, but still the quality is there at home at your own ground. It's supposed to be a fortress. I'm sorry. Those games should be won. And there's no excuse not for doing it at all. And I think he knows that, to be fair. It's just mad. he said. He was asked by someone else whether it was a lack of leadership and experience in the team that led to kind of moments like we saw early in the game. And he said it shouldn't be, because it's happened to us a few times this year. We should have learned from these things, but it's a constant in our makeup at the moment. It's something we need to eradicate. At different times this year, we've shown really good focus and concentration, Frankfurt being a classic case of that. But tonight, just at the start, we didn't really sense the only threat that Forest were going to have was the counter-attack, which we handled really well in the second half, and set pieces. We let in 2 poor goals. Positives, wow. If I can find some positives from the 18th Premier League defeat of the season, I thought the wingers were all right. I thought Matisse Tell and Wilson Odobert at different points looked quite threatening on the wings. Tell, in particular, for me, it's funny, we did the podcast today, Guesty and I, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, if you've never listened to it. Guesty lent more towards Odobert being the better player tonight. I think I got that sense from him. Whereas I felt Odobert was really quiet for the first half hour, apart from that bouncing shot he had that was pushed away. Whereas I felt like Tell, just from the off, looked like he was on it. He looks confident. He looks like he's got his rhythm and his sharpness again. And bearing in mind, he's only 19. I thought he looked like the guy that was trying to drive things and make it happen. On the night, Spurs slung in 51 crosses into the box, which is the most of any team in a Premier League game this season, and it's the club's most amount of crosses in a game since October 2022, yeah. Postecoglou said afterwards that was the tactic because he felt that Forest were going to be really kind of cluttered and clustered in the middle, and that the key was to try and get around them and over them with crosses into the box. When you got Porro's quality and Tell and Odobert putting some good ones, Tell putting a good one that Richarlison headed wide, Odobert put one right across the face of goal that someone should have got. I guess that's an instance of him adapting and using different tactics and ways of trying to get around an opposition rather than just having the one way of doing it. So we've got to give him praise for that. I actually felt it wasn't going to work in the first half. I felt they were just slinging in almost aimless crosses, which Forest would just, it was like their meat and drink. It was just easy for them. Their bread and butter, if you will. But then I even tweeted that. And then weirdly after that, I don't know whether I jinxed my own tweet, which I was quite happy about. But after that point, some of the crosses and corners and set pieces were actually starting to cause problems. We had Tell sliced a shot wide when the ball fell to him in the box. Like I say, Richarlison had a couple of opportunities. It just started, these little kind of things were growing, and there were corners that were causing problems. We had Decky's header that was cleared off the line. And yeah, it did kind of, it was having its impact, but they needed to be finished off. It's as simple as that. Richarlison up front, mixed, I felt. I thought with his feet, I didn't think it was particularly good. I thought it looked really rusty. In the air, he is one of the best that Spurs have. Should have done better with a couple of chances. One in particular, he headed one wide, but the other one he really should have got on target. Sarr kind of looked like he was getting in his way, but I still think Richarlison should have powered it into the net. I think that was from a Porro cross. I think so. But yeah, he should have put it on target regardless, really, for me. But then his header was lovely. The one that got the goal back. What I would say as well is the crosses that were going into the box, it's probably Solanke's been crying out for that all season. I don't think Solanke was great when he came on. It didn't quite work with him and the two up front. But if he'd have been in that first half and had however many crosses were slung in, actually that was a good stat Guesty came out with today. Of the 10 chances Spurs created in the first half, Matisse Tell was involved in 8 of them. So there you go, kind of shows his impact. But yeah, Richarlison, it's just the availability. 4 goals in his past 5 Premier League games, and he makes an impact when he comes on and when he's involved in games, and he played the full 90, which is great for him, but just isn't there enough. He started 3 Premier League games this season. He started 3 Europa League games this season and 1 Carabao Cup game. It's just not enough. And it kind of leads to a fascinating kind of decision over his future next season. Obviously Solanke's going to be the striker going forward for Spurs now. With Richarlison, I think if the club were to receive an offer, I think they take it because it's just not available enough. But who pays that? Again, Guesty, giving him another tip of the hat. He did point out, of course, it's the World Cup year the following year. So next season probably needs to be one where he is playing regularly. So he maybe would push for something. But, there was interest from Saudi Pro League, wasn't it? Is that going to help him get a spot at the World Cup? Probably not. Interested to see what happens there. If he could stay fit, if Spurs had this season with Solanke and Richarlison available, especially that period where Solanke was out with the knee injury and Richarlison would be in there, I think it's a very different season domestically. I do think he can be that good, Richarlison, but just got to be there on the pitch. That's what it's all about. He was asked about Richarlison after the game. Postecoglou, he said, it was part of the exercise today to get him, Wilson, Kulusevski, Kevin Danso some game time because they've missed a hell of a lot of football. Richie has hardly played all year. Decky has been a couple of months. Same with Wilson and Kevin. From that perspective, it was good they all got through it and got some meaningful minutes. We could rest a few others, which was also useful for us. From that perspective, it was a positive. Decky, Kulusevski was making his first start since the win at Ipswich in February. He was shaking off the rust, especially first half. I didn't think he was very good. But second half, better. Almost scored, obviously, with Toffler making that great clearance. And we found out, which we hadn't known, it hadn't been out there until last night when Decky did his club interview. He had a stress fracture in his foot. We just knew it as a foot injury. So we found out exactly what had happened there. I guess one positive, although it could be too late, we'll see, hopefully not, is that we'd all kind of said that Decky needed a bit of a break. He was being overplayed. The player who was the player of the season by a mile in the first third of the season, just really tired during the injury crisis because he was playing every minute. You could see him on the pitch, like trying to get up the pitch. So to have a month off, if he can get a few minutes, and get more minutes at Anfield, then maybe for these two semi-final legs, you're getting a fresh and sharper Kulusevski, which could be a big thing at a crunch time, really. He was, again, back to giving his lovely, honest interviews about the performances and stuff like that. He said, I'm very angry, as in with the defeat, but you've got to think about the process. You can't give up. It was good to be back playing football. I felt great, and I've just got to be ready for the next game against Liverpool and then the Europa League. I do feel great. I've done everything possible to feel good when I came back because I know that with a stress fracture, it's not easy because I couldn't move for a month with a boot on my foot, but I did everything right, and thanks to that, I'm fit now. I'm feeling great, so nothing to complain about. Honestly, I feel great. First start since Ipswich, I came close to scoring. I take the positives. I rest tomorrow, and I'll be back the next day. It was the defending Decky was more annoyed about. He said, we knew how they were going to play. The problem was that we conceded 3 goals in 10 minutes with the offside goal, and you can't win football games if you do that. It's too easy to score when you cross the ball and we don't defend. So that made us play the game. We did our best. We did some good things. We created a lot of chances. And in the end, we got a goal, but it was too late. Of course, we played good, but it's not about that. We lacked the focus in the first 10 minutes. You've got to respect the game. It's not good enough doing it against Frankfurt. It was important to get a win there, but we can't come out and concede these goals that we did now. Everybody has to take responsibility for that. Every player, every coach. It can't happen, and in the end we lose points that we should not lose. It's very frustrating, and it's been like this throughout the season, so it's a lot to learn. I like the way he talks after games. It's very, to the point. He doesn't mess around, beat around the bush, does Dejan Kulusevski, and I do wonder whether they build this team around him in future years. So some people that still don't rate him, I just think he's such a good player. And I do think playing him in that midfield role suits him. He just needs to be a bit sharper than he was last night. But do not forget the player that Spurs had in the first third of the season. He was brilliant. Actually, we've got to think soon, Guesty and I, about player of the season for Spurs. And it's a tough one. Please let me know in the comments. Help us out. Who would you have as a player of the season? Honestly, every player has had a good couple of months at some point, and they've also had some pretty poor months, or they've been out for months with injury. It is a tough shout. Like, Spurs top scorer is Brennan Johnson, but probably most people would not have him as, player of the season. It's just mad. There's so much to that. But yeah, let me know. I'd be fascinated to see because I reckon there'd be a lot of different opinions on that. But yeah, so at the end of the day, another disappointing day at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in front of the fan base. The attendance was stated and was given to us all as 59,314. Anyone sitting there looking out, the amount of empty seats out there, that's a push for that to be the figure. Honestly, I could see in front, top of the east stand, top of the north stand, south stand, there were a lot of empty rows, and within as well, you could see people amongst them. There were empty seats, and I mean, I don't think Spurs go down the route of what was it? Arsenal used to count tickets sold rather than people that came through the turnstiles. I don't think Spurs do that. But this certainly felt like an odd number when we saw it kind of flash up on the screens in front of us. It could be that maybe people have just had enough and left mid-game. It could be that people just wanted to go and spend time in the bar because it was more entertaining than watching the game. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think. I think that figure was more than the Frankfurt match, and I cannot see that at all. But look, can't really blame people for staying away because home games at your own stadium are meant to bring on the whole wins and good football. They have not guaranteed that this season for Spurs. They've only won 6 of their 17 home Premier League matches this season. Disgusting. It is disgusting. They've lost 8 at home this season. And, you know, some of those games have been some absolute snooze fest, some of them as well. Yes, last night was a bit different. Last night, they deserve more from the game in an attacking sense. But ultimately, do they? Because you've got to put the ball in there. Defensively, 2 key moments, 2 absolute head losses. Yeah, it was just poor. Only 4 teams have lost more at home this season. Only the bottom 3 have lost more games in total than Spurs this season. And like I said earlier, you know it's been an awful season when you're kind of celebrating the fact that Arsenal beat Ipswich so that you don't have to get relegated. That's just dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful. It should never have come to that. He was asked afterwards, Postecoglou, whether avoiding the club's lowest ever Premier League points total was enough for the players to be motivated for the league games, or whether it's just all on Europa League. And he said, I don't know what that means. I don't think you saw a team that wasn't motivated. It's not like we lost because players chucked it in. If that's what people saw, then they're watching something different to me. I don't think they lacked motivation today because I thought our football was outstanding. But again, we've paid the price for lacking focus and concentration in key moments. And it's another game we've let slip. So I don't think motivation is an issue. It's used outstanding twice. I don't think outstanding would be the way to describe it. I thought they were good going forward and they created a lot of chances. But I don't think outstanding is the right word to use for that performance overall because, yeah, the football I don't think was that good. I've seen them play better football, definitely. But I suppose one aspect you could look at it is I still don't think he's lost the dressing room in any way, shape or form because you don't create that many chances and see players running and trying that amount if he has. So that's one thing. Yeah, also brought back Nuno Espirito Santo. I had to get my stuff done at the end, so I didn't get to stay in for his press conference after, but I got sent the quotes from people afterwards. And I did wonder whether he would have some mixed feelings, you know, coming back to the Tottenham team sitting in 16th in the table. And when he was sacked in 2021, they were 8th. You know, I know they'd lost, I think it was 7 out of 9 games, 5 out of 7 games, something like that. So it was, you know, it was the wrong time, wrong manager, wrong club kind of thing. But still, you know, to come back and win, there must have been a little bit privately, a little bit of satisfaction. That was kind of put to him. And to be fair, he said, no, you maybe don't know me enough to ask this kind of question. I was honoured to be managing Tottenham, a huge, big club. I have a huge admiration and I wish Tottenham the best for its future, but you wouldn't ask that if you know me better. It wasn't me, by the way. I wasn't in the press conference. But I just thought that was a touch of class. I mean, he's always come across as a good guy, and I've always said that about Nuno, even though I disappointed him so, and he didn't give us a lot as press. But he always came across as a good guy. And I'll always remember the first Premier League game he had at Spurs when they beat Man City, and I kind of just was watching him and his family just walking around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium pitch and just let it sink in. He kind of had this big opportunity, won his first game against Man City. It was just a really nice moment. So I've always kind of had that bit of respect for him. And I just thought that was a really classy answer. It was, because he could have taken a very easy, cheap shot at Spurs, as, let's be honest, some other managers would. But yeah, this is a different Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. It's not the Tottenham Hotspur that is anywhere in the right place in the table it should be. But remarkably, a season that looks like it's spiralling towards utter misery could have its salvation still in the Europa League. It could be the most successful season the Spurs have had in a long time, rather than the most miserable one. It kind of has to, because the alternative, let's be honest, we all deserve better. We do. And it's fascinating because I do wonder, we spoke about this kind of over the course of the season, but how many of us would have taken at the start of the season? This is a big if. They've still got to beat Postecoglou, who are going to be a massive challenge. People really, I think, are going to underestimate how good they are and how well they've done this season. But if they were to get past them and then either Bilbao or United in the final and were able to win it, would you have taken that at the start of the season? Let's say Spurs finished 17th and a trophy. Would you take that? Would you have accepted that at the start of the season? It's a difficult one, isn't it? We've craved Silverware so much, but it's kind of, if it comes at the expense of a very difficult and painful season in the league. But is it still worth it? Again, like the player of the season thing, let me know in the comments. I'm fascinated to know what people kind of say. I always say this. I always look on social media and you look at stuff and you're just like, oh God. But actually, the comments under my videos are a really interesting place to be. I love the community that's developed within them and the debates that I had and the fascinating things. Yeah, the odd person goes a little bit too far and gets a bit unpleasant with other people, or about Ange, or about Tottenham, whatever. But I actually think on the whole, there's some really well-reasoned, thought-out debates in there, and I love that. That's kind of partly a joy of doing this, is to see people discussing it and really kind of getting into nitty-gritty of stuff as well. So yeah. So that's that. That's it. I mean, what have I got time-wise? I could maybe rattle through a very quick lone latest that I've got here as well. Luka Viskovic has been talking. I mentioned that earlier this week. He was asked, he did an interview with L'Avenir, where he was asked about the decision to come to Spurs when the likes of Real Madrid, PSG and Man City were looking at him and kind of making some serious moves for him, but he chose Spurs. He said, I heard about Tottenham's interest just a few weeks before my signing. I walked into the locker room after training and got a call from my father saying, Tottenham want you, everything is in order, all that's missing is your signature. He said, I was obviously surprised as I'd only played 11 matches with Hajduk Split. I visited the training complex and the stadium, and the Tottenham management gave me a presentation highlighting my strengths, but also the areas for improvement, and I was quickly charmed by the project. And we actually get to find out the transfer fee here, which we kind of got a rough idea of. He said, when I heard the figure of 11 million euros, which bearing in mind he was 16 at this point, I just thought about the fact that I was breaking the record for the biggest transfer out of Hajduk Split. It was an incredible feeling to financially help this club that means so much to me. For the rest, I saw this transfer as a reward for my daily work. That's all. And when asked about earning a spot in Tottenham starting 11 when he arrives this summer, he said, I think it's possible. Even though there are already world-class players like Van der Ven and Romero, I want to take it step by step, finish the season well at Westerlo, then earn my place at Tottenham, and then we'll see what the future holds. Yes, like he says, he's got to finish off the season with Westerlo first. They're in the like a little qualifying phase for Europe in the Belgian league and the Jupiler Pro League. There's been a bit of an illness going around their camp at the moment. Alfie Devine had it and he missed out at the weekend. They had a 1-1 draw with Standard Liège. I think he's hoping to be back. They've got a game tonight against Mechelen. I don't know whether he'll start or not. Alfie might not be in a position to do that. Vuskovic, he only played 7 minutes at the end of the draw with Liège at the weekend. I wonder whether there was an illness factor there as well. But yeah, I mean, he's had a terrific loan move, Vuskovic at Westerlo. He admitted that he had the loan move at Radomiak and he kind of said it didn't go particularly well. He was just training there, didn't play too much. Said there was a bit of a kind of a different cliques in the dressing room of the Brazilian players and Croatian players, was it Polish players? So yeah, but this loan's done really well, and he's had a little bit of Tottenham company as well in Alfie Devine, who's had a good loan himself. What else we got in the loan roundup? Manor Solomon. Obviously, Manor Solomon's flying high at the moment, and Leeds are flying back into the Premier League. They won 6-0 against Stoke City. Ashley Phillips, Stoke City on Monday afternoon. And then, of course, Burnley beat Sheffield United, which allowed Burnley and Leeds to both go up automatically to the Premier League. Not good news for travel in terms of it looks like it's all going to be pretty much, well, it's 2 northern teams back into the equation. Still brings me back terrible nightmares of my snowy trip up the mountains to Burnley, only to find out the game had been postponed when I arrived and having to drive straight home. What a beautiful 11.5 hour round trip that was in my car. But yeah, so Leeds are coming up. Now it's decided whether they come up as champions or not. They've got 2 games to go. Solomon got 2 assists in the game against Stoke. He'd scored the winning goal on Friday. A Good Friday against Oxford United. So yeah, he's doing very well at the moment. 12 assists, 9 goals in 39 matches. And Leeds going up. I'm pretty sure that it'll have a go at trying to sign him permanently. I think the figure that keeps rattling around with him seems to be between 10 and 12 million, maybe. I think there'll be a fair bit of interest, from what I understand, in him from other Premier League sides as well. So, Spurs might be able to push that up a little bit more. Obviously, they got him for nothing, albeit I don't know what comes of that with Shakhtar Donetsk and the whole kind of issues they were having trying to get some money for him. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Solomon. Who knows? Then if there is a new manager next season, because this is the thing with Postecoglou, it's kind of got to this point, doesn't it, where if he wins the Europa League, does that save his job, or does he still go in the summer? I keep seeing every couple of days there's a new report essentially saying he might go, but he might not. I don't know. It would have to be such a groundswell of change of opinion, I think, with what a Europa League win might do, but also the results in the remainder of the season, I think, would have to be better. Otherwise, all that we would achieve, I think, would be a Europa League win would allow him to maybe move on mutually, whereas if he were not to win it, it would probably find himself sacked. So, yeah, it's... I'd love to be a groundswell, like a whole change of opinion. I just kind of feel like the fan base on the whole is kind of a bit like, eh. Honestly, I can be out of walks with a dog and a Spurs fan will come out and go, when's he going? And it just feels like the general opinion. So I think it'd be quite difficult for him. I mean, there's the whole kind of Ten Hag situation where he won and got prolonged in the job and ultimately still ended up going. And I guess the question for the club would be, do they continue to trust Postecoglou and give him money next summer or this summer to continue building his team? It's all of those questions would have to be answered first. But I would say right now it would look difficult for next season. And I just kind of feel maybe with Postecoglou's demeanour and press conferences, maybe that's the way he feels as well. But we'll see. We'll see. There's still a way to go. I just want a trophy. A trophy would be nice, please. But there's 3 huge games for that to happen. Just to get past the first 2 first would be a start. Other loan players. Ashley Phillips, on the wrong end of that 6-0 hammering from Leeds. Stoke 17th in the table, 4 points above the drop zone with 2 games to go. He had a tough day against Leeds, as many of that team did. But he's done kind of well on the whole. Bearing in mind, I think Stoke have had 3 different managers this season. I think he's done as well as can be expected. It'd be interesting to see what kind of future he's got at Spurs when he comes back. And like I think I was saying before I went off on a tangent, Manor Solomon, we'll see whether he ends up having any future. I would be surprised, but you never know. You never know. Alfie Dorrington, he's at Aberdeen. Alfie Dorrington is going to be playing the Scottish Cup final, which is brilliant for him. He's really worked his way. I think they had an injury in their backline. He's worked his way into being a regular in their backline, Aberdeen. And it's brilliant. They won their semi-final against Heart of Midlothian. Extra time, 2-1 win. He came off half-time in extra time. So yeah, he'll be at Hampden Park, hopefully, injury allowing, against Celtic on May the 24th. So that's a very cool first debut for him. What a season, really. Made his debut for Spurs and in the Premier League against Southampton. And now he could potentially be in a cup final. Brilliant for the 20-year-old centre-back. What else we had? Yang, difficult night for Jan Min-hyuk for QPR. Played 66 minutes in a 2-1 win at Preston on Friday, and then 67 minutes as they lost to Swansea by the same score on Monday. Yeah, I looked at some of the player ratings. They were not kind upon him. Let's put it that way, is the best way to say it. But still, it's experience of the English game, which is what he's needed. Will Lancashire, taken off at half-time on Friday for West Brom. They would go down to Coventry, but they conceded again and didn't score. Then 64 minutes, they lost to, who was it? It was on a relegated team, a struggling team, Derby. They lost 3-1 at home, West Brom. Tony Mowbray got a sack. They need a miracle to go up, West Brom. They're 10th place. They're 6 points behind with 2 games to play. Yeah, they would just need an absolute kind of all of these different results to fall into place for him. If it's even possible, it may be one of those weird ones where mathematically it doesn't even quite work because of who's playing who. But yeah, so Will Lancashire will have a new manager in former West Brom midfielder James Morrison, not the singer, but the former midfielder. He's going to be the interim boss. So we'll see whether he continues to start or not. Sometimes when there's a caretaker boss, sometimes they go with the youth. Sometimes when they know, especially in this situation, they're probably not going to get a playoff spot. Maybe they go for experience. But yeah, again, all experience for Will Lancashire at the end of the day. Jamie Donnelly and Josh Keeley at Leyton Orient. Jamie Donnelly scored a beauty. If you have not seen it, watch Jamie Donnelly's goal for Leyton Orient as they won against Cambridge United yesterday. He kind of just tees it up on his left foot up into the air and just wallops a beautiful volley that bounces into the far right corner. Really, really lovely goal. And that follows up from Friday, got 2 assists in the 4-3 win against Barnsley at home. So he's really coming up trumps for Orient, Donnelly, just when they need him to. Tough ask of them, though. 6th in the League One table. Very close for that final playoff spot with Reading, but they've got some tough games. The last 2 games they've got against Wickham, who are up, I think they're at 3rd in the table. And then they've got to go to Huddersfield on the final day of the regular season to try and get into those playoffs. Could be tough, but he and Josh Keeley's had a terrific season. He's been a rocking goal. 34 consecutive starts in League One for them. 15 clean sheets. Brilliant. The 2 of them are going to have no issues getting a loan next season. I would imagine they'll both at least get a championship loan next season. Again, though, who knows? New manager, if there is a new manager at Spurs, maybe they look at both of those in pre-season and go, why are they going out of the club? You never know. Jamie Donnelly has just come on leaps and bounds. It's been brilliant. Someone who hasn't come on leaps and bounds is Alejo Velez. He's at Espanyol. Not going well. Not going well for him. Just sitting on the bench right now, watching, not coming on. I think they were playing tonight against Valencia in La Liga Espanyol, so maybe he does tonight, but another struggling loan for him. Matthew Craig has been back from hamstring injury. He's been playing for them, unfortunately. Another one with illness. He missed out on yesterday's game for Mansfield as they lost 5-1 at home to Reading. So they obviously missed him. George Abbott. It wasn't a great weekend for Notts County. I mean, they got a 1-1 draw with second place Bradford on Friday, so it wasn't too bad. But they lost 2-1 at home to 16th place Cheltenham, and their playoff spots, it's going to be very nervy in League Two in those last couple of games. They're 7th in the table right now. Great loan for George Abbott, though. 41 appearances for them. 12 goal involvements as well for the 19-year-old. Brilliant stuff. Luca Gunter, he's currently on loan at Wealdstone in National League. He's on the bench at the moment, just watching on, unfortunately. Was their goalkeeper, but last 3-4 games maybe, he's been on the bench having a watch on. But again, great experience for him. So, and I think there's pretty interest in him for another loan as well. So, yes, we shall see. But that's the loan roundup, really. The only other one who's on loan technically is Pierre Mahoybier, but he's joining them permanently, Marseille. So I don't really include him in the loan roundups because he's kind of gone. So that's that. What else? That's it in terms of Tottenham Hotspur, really. We've got kind of a strange, clearer midweek because there's no fixture. Press conference Friday, Anfield Sunday. But as I've said, I shall not be there. I have that marathon thing in the way, that London Marathon. at TCS London Marathon to try and get myself through 26.2 miles of pain. Hey, maybe I've been used to pain this season with Tottenham Hotspur and throughout my life anyway. So we are just £53 off £25,000 race for cancer research, which is just incredible. It's just madness. I can't believe how generous people have been. Actually, I better just double check in case while I've been on this, anyone has donated further. Let's have a look. Oh, slightly more. We're on 24,965. So £35 off of £25,000. That's very cool. That's just mad. I'm so blown away by it. People are so lovely. They really are. £25,000 for cancer research is just, that's got to help some people. I hope. I really hope it does. It's such a motivator. It really is. I went for my last longish run the other day. I just did a half marathon on Sunday. And I did it in the knowledge that total was flying up past £24,000. Honestly, it pushes me on more than anything. It really does. I think I did my fastest half marathon that I've done in this little kind of training stage. Yeah, it's great. It's just awesome. And yeah, if you see me on the day, please do wave, shout encouragement, whatever. Yeah. I've already been kind of told by people that are going to be in my wave of people running. I've been told by people that are going to be I've got to head to the marathon show tomorrow at the Excel to go and pick up my bib and everything like that. So if you see me at that, please do say hello. And yeah, on the day, honestly, shout some encouragement. I'm going to need it, especially as I get past I think the last time I did it 12 years ago, my knee blew out at mile 17. So we'll see. I'm going to need all the help I can get at that point. Like I said, I haven't done anything like it in 12 years. My body is a very different, quite literally a beast nowadays. It's bigger and it's achier and it's older. So yeah, any encouragement, please do try and push me on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's a little bit of nerves, just because, like I said, just trying to see if I can do it. I didn't really feel nervous when I did it all those years ago, but I think just because I'm older, I'm in my 40s now. Whether it's just, we'll see. We'll see how I go. Right, time to head off. I don't think there's anything else. If anything else does happen this week, of course, I'll jump on and do another video. But otherwise, I've got one little short run I'm going to do tomorrow morning before I head off to the Excel to get my marathon stuff. And then I'm just going to try and rest up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and let my body be as recovered as possible for Sunday, and see if I can get to that finishing line. And yeah, again, thank you so much to everyone that's donated. You're incredible. If you still would like to donate, I'll shove the link underneath. I know it's 2 in a row, but it's the last time I'll probably do it, maybe. I guess I could do it afterwards, because there might be some people thinking, well, I'm not going to donate money unless you've actually done it, because I might donate and you might not make it. Who knows? It might be the case. I might get some injury and end up having to crawl. Whatever happens, I'm going to try and get across that line. If I have to crawl, I don't know if they'll just close it off at some point and say, no, sorry, no. We'll see. But right, time to head off. I'm taking up too much of your time. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.